Today we have an ARPG developed by Snowblind Studios that I can't believe I never played as a kid. It would have been right up my alley. A friend actually suggested that I play this game, knowing I enjoy the decent ARPG like Diablo or Gauntlet or something like that. Obviously, that game is Champions of Norrath, Realms of EverQuest. Couldn't really find anything number-wise on how well this game did and sold, but I guess it did good enough because there is a sequel in Champions Return to Arms. This game was also only on the PS2, so maybe that's why it slipped by me and I never heard of it as a kid. People around me, for the most part, had the Xbox or the GameCube. Also, it came out in 2004, which is a hard-hitting year for gaming, kind of a mammoth year. Talking about things like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Halo 2, World of Warcraft, Half-Life 2, Tony Hawk's Underground 2, Lord of the Rings was pumping out some bangers, and the Nintendo DS was released that year, I believe, as well, so it kind of might have got lost in the mix to me. I don't know. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. Either way, here we are reviewing it in 2025, 21 years later. The game is kind of your standard ARPG elements where you just take a character through various treacheries of the world with different environments. It's 5 acts in total. It's kind of split up nice. That's how I'm going to do this review, and we're just going to get right into it. Right off the bat, I was kind of shocked that this game actually had internet co-op capabilities. It's crazy. I didn't even know the PS2 could go online until later in life. And then you have 3 options for gameplay difficulties, being Adventurous, Courageous, and Champion. However, you have no options to play anything but Adventurous at the beginning because the other difficulties require you to beat the game on the previous. So I guess something like a New Game Plus or something, I don't know, but so Adventurous it is. Thanks for the damn illusion of choice, champs. After that, we get spun into a cutscene where there's this war starting between orcs and goblins becoming allies, and this elf dude acts like this is a really big deal, and maybe it is. I guess I should say I have never played a single game in the EverQuest franchise. This is literally my first one, so I can't really speak to the lore of this game. I'll just be talking about the actual contained story itself, and I must say they did a really good job. You don't need to have played anything before this game. It was pretty easy to follow along. So these orcs and goblins are advancing and attacking the elves in their home of Fadeware, which I had to look up, and it's an eastern island in this world, and they continue to move through the forest, and this seems to be sort of a last stand against the evil. The champions have been summoned, and we need to hold the orcs and goblins off. So character selection time. We have 5 options: Barbarian Warrior, Wood Elf Ranger, High Elf Cleric, Erudite Wizard, and Dark Elf Shadow Knight. And let's just say that female armor isn't doing anything at all. Holy moly. Anyway, if you watched my Gauntlet Dark Legacy video, you already know I go magic. So Erudite Wizard it is. We got some minor cosmetic options, and then some ability points to allocate to start. Intelligence it is, and a little bit of extra health. And we name our dude, and let's go. Oh, so this dude's name is Lethcorius or some shit. Alright, the first act of the game is pretty simple, not a whole lot to show. It's basically just learning the controls to get going, and they're really quite good. You can completely rotate the camera. You can zoom all the way down to your guy or pull the camera all the way back for that top-down experience. That's how I roll. You quickly learn a big part of the game, which is the merchant. Basically, through the whole game, you're going to be just picking up loot that drops, bringing it back to the merchant with the gate scroll, which you can buy from that merchant, or they also drop randomly. And then you sell everything you have that you don't want to use as an upgrade, and then you buy potions. Like, seriously, a ton of potions. I'm not sure if it's just the wizard class, but I've never used as many potions in a game as I did in this one. It feels like a primary mechanic of the game is potion use. So thankfully they aren't on any sort of a cooldown or anything, and you simply need to just keep buying them over and over again. So when you get to the merchant, just make sure you stock up on them because you're going to need them for mana and healing. And then when you're done with the merchant, you just simply use the gate scroll again, and that teleports you right back to the part of the world where you left, and it creates something like a home portal or something like that. Pretty straightforward. So as you keep making your way through the treetop and then the forest, it's mostly just goblins you're fighting, and then you eventually will come and meet the main bad guy that you're chasing throughout the game.
So, Lethcorius Hound has tracked me down.
Hellas, big, thick orc boy. You fight him, and I gotta say, the beginning of this game, you realize, is definitely the most difficult part. This guy, as well as some of the smaller bosses, did actually kill me quite a bit. It's a little rough until you get some gear and level up a bit, and I actually thought the game was going to be kind of janky the whole way through, where you didn't really feel like you had much power at all, but the game does indeed smooth out as you get a couple of items and such. So I did quickly realize, though, I gotta, these dungeons and everything that you're gonna get thrown into were kind of a lot bigger than I would have assumed they are, which was kind of cool. And it's also cool, it says right on the back of the box that it actually does use a random dungeon generator, so no game has the same experience. It's also pretty cool, and it kind of looks neat too. Whenever you're on a level of a dungeon, you can like see down below to the next level, or a cool background, as you'll see going through some of the gameplay. They all look pretty cool. And as you're going through, you quickly realize gear is plentiful, and it says there's more than 10,000 items that are also randomly generated. You also quickly learn that even as a ranged class, you're going to be doing a pretty large amount of fighting, hitting people with your stick. Luckily, I have a massive one here. And make sure if you go something like Wizard, you still allocate some points into strength once in a while, because you need to deal the D to these fools. So make sure if you go Wizard to allocate, or something range, to allocate some points to strength, even though it's not your main source of damage, just once in a while, because you really need to deal that extra D to these fools with your stick. It's the only downside to the combat, in my opinion. Everything feels great, but I wish I could do more spelled combat as a Wizard. The spells just cost so much mana and everything, and also everything but the frost spell felt like ass to me, even though they look pretty sick. I mean, there's a spell, but it just did nothing. This does get a little bit better as the game goes on, but I chose to stay with the frost spell and just level that up. After monkeying around a little bit in Act 1, we go right in Act 2. We encounter Pellis again. Spoiler, we didn't kill him in that first boss fight. And he summons this spider that we need to beat. And it's a pretty cool boss fight. You have to avoid its webs, trying to bring you in for that close good suck. And then we need to follow Pellis underground. And then there's these gnomes being attacked by giant ants that are eating their homes and biting off their heads. It's literally what this little guy told me. So naturally, we need to help these fellows out. And we have to kill a Sand Queen, which is another fairly cool boss battle. You need to damage the boss while it's summoning all these other ants. So you're basically fighting hordes of ants. And the main boss is kind of just flying around and can really damage you. Got me a few times, and you slowly damage the boss through like AoE as the fight goes on. And then you continue your march underground, and you gotta save this guy's daughter by returning her 5 kittens that she's decided to bring down here with reanimated skeletons. You know, she says she loves these cats, but I don't know, maybe keep them away from the undead then. And then anyway, we meet Firiona, Vi, in the tunnels. I don't really know who the hell she was at first. She's some type of royal high elf that makes appearances to us through visions, letting us know we're kind of on the right track throughout the story. And we continue on our way, and we get to an underground castle occupied by vampires. We meet this vamp in a thong named Silea, who is the bride of Vanarost, the narrator of the game actually, who's also a vamp. We're about to see him. And this chick's hungry, but she doesn't want to feast on blood, so she makes a deal with us where if we go get this thing called the bloodroot plant, she can eat that to satisfy her hunger for blood, and she will take us deeper into the castle to see Vanaros. So we go get that plant, we run into this gnome that we're going to be working with later, and he tells us that Silea is so hot he might want to be a vampire. Fair enough. We bring the plant back, and she eats it? She really enjoyed it. And then we go down to Vanaros, and Pellis is discussing further battle plans with him. Holy shit. I guess they had no time to work on Vanaros' eyes with all the time they spent on breasts. Wow. So anyway, we continue to chase the vamp through the underground palace. We finally catch up to him, and he throws us in this dungeon with a bunch of lesser vampires. This part's actually pretty cool. Take a quick look here. So we obliterate those foes and come back for a boss battle against Vanarost himself. Once again, neat boss battle. Pretty difficult because he can 2 or 3 shot us. I would say I died like 5 or so times to this guy. But we beat him, but not really. It seems to be the theme of this game so far. You think you beat someone, but they show up again. But Silea has our back and not his, and she puts a knife into his. and it buys us enough time to escape. She also gives us the key to let that gnome out of the cell. His name is Bab, and he's actually a sailor. So we head on over this dock and set sail with my buddy Bab.
She's all yours, then. Finest ship I ever built. May the pit
And this little dude says that as long as we don't hit any storms, we'll be alright. But spoiler alert, we do. And thus begins Act 3 in the Pit of Ill Omen. So Act 3 is extremely long for some reason, so I'm going to shorten it down a bit. Essentially, we arrive here because Pellis thought we were actually Vanarosh trying to follow him, so he summons a storm to destroy our ship. Somehow he's that strong. And when he saw it was our character, he decided to let us enter the island, kind of like using our services to try and track down something called the Horn of Ill Omen. That's a relic located here. So he figured that we'd either die trying to recover the relic, or he could intercept the horn once we obtained it. The coolest part about Act 3 is the various environments and landscapes that we battle across, starting with the island, of course. And then we meet this mermaid, Cariel, who need perfect hair placement. She gives us the power to breathe underwater while in the pit, so then we literally go underwater and do some battle, and we get teleported to a desert. Where we need to help an old dead king named Mormaz basically obtain peace in his death by putting out flames in this desert temple using his heart. So we go do that, come back, and we have to fight him. Like, the only way he can have an honorable death is if an honorable person slays him, so we have to fight him. Once we beat him, we gain access to the back of his little temple here, and we get teleported to the Tower of Clouds. Another cool area, neat backdrop, and we have to fight some Zeus-looking dude. Once again, very neat boss battle, and then shortly after that, we meet this Laszlo guy, who it was told to us knows where to go to find the horn. So we rescue him, and we get teleported to a frozen sea. And I love a good icy, snowy area, but the enemies here were very annoying for me, because they're all large and tanky, and also immune to frost damage, so I had to just basically do close range combat and use a bunch of healing potions, or just use the fire spell that I didn't have leveled up. And it's pretty cool this game has immunities and weaknesses and such. You know, makes sense that the snowy enemies don't mind being hit in the face with snowballs. So while we're here, we have to gather 5 parts to make a ship to go where this Laszlo guy says the horn is. And then once we get those parts, he just bounces because he's a scaredy cat, and we make the ship and we sail off. But I have no idea what happens here. There's a cutscene, and then we're just underwater again. Maybe there was another storm or something, or we just got the ship to a certain location and jumped off. I don't know. Then we need to fight this Sebastian guy who's under here, and pretty easy to cheese. Just kind of got him stuck there, and we're able to damage him from afar by just letting our mana recharge and hit him with some spells. And then he is the boss that drops the horn. So we go all over in this act. Literally just all the environments, and I would say it probably took me about 5 hours to do this act. It was definitely the longest one, but ultimately all of our work was of much use because Pellis shows up and takes the horn from us, and then Pellis reveals that his true form is a dark elf, not an orc actually. Not really sure why he had this illusion on because I'm not familiar with the backstory, but and he reveals that he's working for his lord Inorek, who is the god of hate here in this world. But then he quickly blows the horn, and we are off to Act 4. So we literally just get like spun into the action. We meet this guy named Gol Nazin. He needs us to find 7 what he calls curiosities. And this part was freaking annoying because I kind of assumed that, like, go find these 7 curiosities. I thought they'd be like cool looking artifacts or something, like you know when you saw one. But no, it's literally these little turds, you know, these little pieces of shit in a cave. So I think I missed 1 or 2, and I had to go back and get them, and just retrace my steps. It was kind of annoying. Like, so if you play this game, keep a lookout, make sure you don't run by them. And then we eventually find all of them, and he gives us a shard of hate, which is part of Inorek himself. And then he's just like, "You're stuck with it now, you know, not my problem." But he says we'll be better with it because we're stronger or some shit. I don't know. And then we go to an arena in this city nearby, and we have to defeat a series of enemies that ends with this weird dinosaur enemy And then that guy drops another shard of hate that we obtain, and then we use that to open the doorway in the city that's been sealed off, and then this teleports us to somewhere I don't understand really why we come here, but it's called the Hanging Gardens. I mean, it looked cool and all, but I don't know why we're here really. And then after making our way through this area and fighting a bunch of undead along the way, we find a gaping hole in the ground, I don't know, some type of portal or something. And then this teleports us to the Plane of Hate, aka Act 5. So the hole in the ground spits us out into the Plane of Hate, and we're thrown into a pretty cool cutscene where we see Interact for the first time. And basically Interact is unpleased with him because Pelles insults him by saying we failed. And then Interact summons some type of beast that smashes him into the ground and then pulls out his soul or something and then uses that soul as an arrow and shoots us with it.
Tell me, champion of Norrath, can you hear that? That is the horn of ill omen. Your gift to us. The only key that can open the portal of every plane of every god known in Norrath. That sound marks the closing of an age and the emergence of a new era. Our era. But you will not live to see this.
Our era?
Inaruk! Lord Inaruk! I meant no insult. Only...
I have watched you travel your path, Pelles. Everything you have touched has ended in failure and ruin. Were it not for you, Norrath would already be mine. You sought to become the child of hate, Pelles Tivil. But to hate, one must suffer.
Lord Inaruk, I beg you, please.
And then we wake up in this hair... Holy smoke, there's that perfect hair placement again. It's Natazla. She was able to save us and bring us to the Plane of Air. So she heals us up and makes us feel better, and we need to go back to the Plane of Hate and end that bitch that smashed Junior.
You do not have the power to defeat me. I will teach you the true meaning of pain.
And we do that, and this door opens up, and Furiona then tells us in order to weaken Interact's barrier of hate, we need to help souls escape the cauldron of hate, which powers his barrier. Okay, so we literally need to do that. We need to gather up souls and march them through the Plane of Hate 3 at a time, trying to keep them all alive, be teleported back to the Plane of Air. And you need to do this until you have gotten enough souls, and you can then enter Interact's lair, if you will. And then here you need to free Furiona from the Prince of Hate by breaking 5 seals. And I really didn't understand what to do here at this point, so I almost rage quit after this because he ends up defeating me. And the game gives you like an alternate epilogue, which is really cool because we failed to stop Interact, so he takes over and it's just like he's able to march his armies and take over Norrath. But the game doesn't continue from a checkpoint like the rest of the game does. If you lose to him, he goes back to the title screen. And I literally had to do all of what I just did again, beating that beast, going through the Plane of Hate, getting the souls back to the Plane of Air. Had to do all that again, so when you're done with that, make sure you save before you go break those seals. So then you break the seals, Furiona teleports with you back to the Plane of Air, and you have to purify the hate out of you to get this steel weapon enchantment thing that makes us more potent against Interact. So you do that, then you get teleported back to the Plane of Hate, and that's the end of the game.
You are strong to have come this far. Do you think it was your faith that gave you this strength? You have slaughtered legions carving your path to me. And you lie if you deny that you took pleasure in the blood that pounded through your veins with each enemy that fell before you. It was hatred's fire that burned in your heart. That makes you my disciple, no matter what god you serve. I now offer you the chance to pledge yourself to me. Your soul is mine.
You end up beating him. I really thought that there was going to be a second phase with this long pause of him like blowing up. And he poops out some gold and just burns up and we don't see him again. We get the epilogue, and Vanaros is here again with his crazy eyes, and it sounds like we've saved Norrath until the sequel anyway, and I definitely plan on playing the sequel. I really had a lot of fun with it. If you're looking for an ARPG that kind of shows the kind of like a timepiece from the early 2000s, it doesn't really hold up to this time period, but I think that's okay because it just, you get taken back when you play this game. I want to say, I'm not going to sit here and say the combat feels as polished as Path of Exile or even Diablo 4 for that instance, even though it's way better than Diablo 4. The skill tree is very simple. It's kind of just 3 branches that you get a few skills from. Nothing like Path of Exile where it feels like you need a PhD when you're first starting out to understand it. But everything just works really well, and it's like a good, kind of relaxing, just chill out story game to play. It'd probably be a lot of fun to play couch co-op. Maybe I'll be able to do that with a friend someday. When the game ends, you can then you unlock the next difficulty, and I went in just to see what happens. So you take that same character right into it, and it just puts you right back on top of that treetop village. So I definitely will be doing another playthrough of this. Maybe I'll do all 3, just to actually say I fully completed the game, I guess. But yeah, guys, I had a lot of fun with this one. Glad I played it. If there's any ARPGs that you liked from back in the day, let me know, because I didn't really play a lot of them, and it's kind of a genre I fell in love with here later in life. So until next time, guys, peace.